Hey everybody, and welcome to this episode of TNCBA's Tips, Tricks, and How-Tos, guys. And as we continue to move through the month of May, we're talking about some versatile baits that you can fish for those post-spawn bass that are starting to pull out. And today we're going to talk to you about the Swim Jig. And the Swim Jig is a really versatile bait. We can skip it really easy. It comes through cover really well, grass really well. We're going down to Gunnersville here.
Works well around docks.
Yeah, works well around a lot of different things.
Oh, yeah.
And you can fish at a lot of different depths, too.
Yes.
So it's something that is very versatile and allows you to target those post-spawn bass this time of year. Now, when it comes to the Swim Jig, I want to talk about my setup first. For the rod, I really like a spinner bait or like a worm jig rod. I have a rod that's a 6/8. It's a medium heavy action. It's got a fairly fast tip on it.
Got one just to the right of us.
There we go. And it's got some good meat. You do need some good backbone.
Yes.
Because we are talking about a thick hook. Okay. This is not a light wire hook on these that I throw. I like to throw one with a little bit heavier wire hook.
But it's got that tip.
It's still got a good tip to play them, because with the Swim Jig, it's constantly moving. They need to be able to take that before you yank it away from them. It's not like it's not a flipping jig. I'm not letting it sit in there and they're picking it up and then I fill them and set the hook. It's moving. So with the Swim Jig, I want a 6/8, a 610 medium heavy rod with a fast tip that's going to allow me to get that hook into them really well. But also, I like the little bit shorter rod here because I'm around targets. I'm casting or trying to skip up under docks. So that's very important to me, is having that 6/8 to 610 medium heavy action rod. Now, with the Swim Jig, okay, some key things here to think about is, one, the type of weed guard you have. I've had some that have a very light weed guard on them, very few fibers. And then I've had some that are the Hack Attack heavy cover Swim Jigs that they are... they're very stout.
Yeah, and personally, my preference, I like a moderate in between, and I may trim it. I mean, if it's a heavy one, I may trim it up a little bit and get some of that stiffness out of it.
Yeah, and it also depends on kind of the cover that you're around. If I'm just around docks, I'm going to go with that lighter weed guard.
Exactly.
But if I'm around grass or I'm around laydowns, I'm going to want something that's a little bit more stout. So keep in mind the weed guard that you have on that. Because the different types of cover that you're around, you may need that little bit stouter one. If I can get away with it, though, I always like to have a lighter weed guard, just because I feel like I'm going to get a better hookup ratio with those fish. Now, as far as sizes, I like to go with a 3/8 to a half. And it depends on where I'm trying to fish this in the water column, how well I want it to skip. Different weights, I can skip a little bit easier sometimes, so that's important to me. So a 3/8 or a ½ ounce, those are the weights I really tend to hang on to and stay around. And then my next thing is the trailer and the line size. And the reason I put those two in the same category here is I use the line size and the trailer to control my rate of fall. Okay, and with this bait, what I have on here right now is a paddle tail swim bait style trailer. This is going to give me a lot less drag. I feel like, as opposed to what I like to throw in the other situation, which is like a twin tail crawl style. Yeah. And I can fish this a little bit deeper. I can work it a little bit faster, maybe even, without it lifting too much.
And what are you trying to mimic with?
Well, in this case, I am either trying, most of the time, where we're getting into this post spawn, and we talked last week to y'all about a shad spawn and a bluegill spawn. I'm really trying to mimic either whether it's the bait fish that are spawning or I'm trying to mimic like a bluegill. Now, in this color here, this is a skirt that I made up for this one, is the rainbow trout. I like to throw this one up on Watauga. So I'm trying to mimic a rainbow trout with this bait. And so I've got those colors in here, some purples and some green pumpkins and stuff to mix in. But otherwise, my go-to is going to be just a chartreuse and white or a straight white Swim Jig. And again, I'm trying to mimic some of that bait fish. I'm trying to mimic a bluegill around these docks or around these laydowns. So with the trailer, like I said, I'm going to be focused on kind of the rate of fall and how quickly I can work that. With the paddle tail swim bait, I can work it a little bit faster and it doesn't want to rise on me so much. If I want this bait to float and hover a little bit better, I'm going to go to like a twin tail crawl style trailer, And that's going to allow me to keep this bait up in the water column without working it as fast. And it's going to have a little bit of that better flutter action as I'm coming maybe around a lay down or coming around a dock. Now, the one thing I've also noticed is a lot of times with that crawl style,
Yes.
sometimes I can get it to skip a little bit better up under docks. And that helps me
I
out
could
a lot.
see that. It's more of a flatter.
It's got a flatter base to it, and those legs are also flatter as well. Versus,
I mean, you're throwing it in that little swim
tail.
bait, that paddle tail. It's ribbed and and everything. It makes it a little more difficult.
A little more drag in the water whenever you go to skip that. So again, I'm thinking about the type of trailer depending on how I want this bait to react. Whether I want it to float kind of a little bit better, if I want to be able to work it faster and keep it down a little bit lower in the water. Then line size does the same thing. Okay, if you're really around heavy cover, grass, wood, I'm upwards of 17, sometimes 20-pound test, because I'm not trying to skip it necessarily. If I'm trying to skip it, I find that 14-pound test line comes off my reel so much better. That I don't have the issues of backlashing.
Yeah, I was going to say limit your possibilities for those birds.
And it slides off there so much better. So again, keep that in mind as well. If you're going to be skipping this swim jig a lot, I lean towards that lighter line, a 14-pound test. But if I'm going to be around grass or I'm going to be around stumps and laydowns and stuff, I'm going to lean more towards that 17 or 20-pound test.
Yeah.
And then the same thing being true for keeping it up in the water column. A heavier line, going to keep that up. It's going to have some more drag. It's going to want to lift some more if I want to keep it lower under those docks. So it kind of goes hand in hand. If I'm under docks, I can typically work that bait a little bit deeper and stuff. And if I'm around a laydown, I might want it to pull up over a branch while I'm working it and then let it flutter down real slow. So all those are key things to keep in mind as you're throwing this swim jig. But as you work it, whether it's fast twitches and reeling it really quick, or it's like just more of a meandering, just hopping through there. I've even had it before where it's throw it out and just wind it in. All of those things have worked before for me. But again, in the post spawn here, I like it because it's very, very versatile. So let's recap really quick what I like to do for the setup here for the swim jig. 1/2 ounce to 3/8, or 3/8 to 1/2 ounce, however you want to look at that. Think about your trailer based on the action you want, how much you want it to kind of float, or how fast you want to be able to work it. Go with either a swim bait, paddle tail swim bait, or kind of a crawl situation. Might be a little bit easier to skip. Then think about your line size. If you're around heavy cover, you want to be with that 17 to 20-pound test. If you're around docks, something that's a little more open water, I'm going to go with 14, especially if I'm trying to skip this. And then for my rod and my reel, I like a high speed.
Yes.
And I like a 6'10 or 6'8 medium heavy action rod that's still going to be stout enough for me to get this hook through their mouth. Okay, so pay attention. You may see fish hanging out around this cover in the post spawn time, just kind of suspended, but hang around the cover, look for bluegill moving around, looking for a shad spawn. But again, a great versatile bait is the swim jig. Tie it on, get out there, sling it around some cover, have a great time with it, guys. We'll see you on the next TNCBA tips, tricks, and how-tos.
See you.